Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by my good friend, Rivals.com national analyst Clint Cosgrove. Clint, it's a great day to see you, as always, buddy.
As always, happy to be here. Good to meet up, Perko, and let's be awesome.
Let's be awesome today. There's a lot of news to get to since you and I last spoke just a week ago. Wisconsin has a new head coach in Luke Fickell. We have more questions than we can shake a stick at here, so we're going to try to get to some of these today from all of our great members in the den at BadgerBlitz.com. Let's start, first of all, with just your reaction to Wisconsin hiring Luke Fickell, and then following that up with what type of player, what type of athlete do you expect Wisconsin to recruit under Fickell that's different than what they have now?
Well, reaction to Fickell, I mean, if you talk about a home run hire, it is a home run hire. This is a big-time football coach who has won football games. He has taken a program that was not only, considered a mid-major, a group of five. He has taken them from a lower end type of that school to a national power almost, playing in the playoff, beating big time teams. His record's phenomenal. He develops relationships. He's built a program before. He's been there. He's done it. He's coached at the highest level, obviously. And you know how many people have tried to hire Luke Fickell and have had zero luck?
A lot.
A lot. And, when I first heard about it, I was a little shocked because I didn't think he was leaving. I thought the only job that he would leave for would be Ohio State or Notre Dame. And, the fact that Wisconsin was able to pull it off, it's a big time hire. Now, at the same time, I was for a long time, I thought Jimmy was the guy. And I think they would have won with Jimmy as well. I do think that Jimmy would have done a great job. He's a fantastic coach. And when I first heard the news, I was a little taken back, to be honest. But if you're going to go outside the program, which they decided to do, I think this is as good of a hire as you could have made. And Wisconsin fans should be excited. I would like to, see a scenario where maybe Jimmy's on staff. I don't know if that's going to happen. Haven't talked to him. Don't know what's going on. But initial reaction after it sinks in and you look at Wisconsin was able to pull off. They got a coach that a lot of teams have wanted for a long time, a proven winner and a developer of talent and a guy who puts out draft picks. So to do that at Cincinnati is big time.
Yeah, I mean, they had 9 draft picks last year. They had more than Alabama last year, which should tell you something about that. I mean, he has developed talent with the best of them and make it to the playoffs. There's nothing really to knock on his resume as a coach, given everything that he has done in his still relatively young coaching career. It's not like he is an old man. And I think that the injection of outside blood will go a long way to bringing the program forward and taking the next steps. Part of that is going to be, I think, it looks like they're going to be bringing in Mike Tressel to be the DC as well at Wisconsin. All that seems to be all the rumors are heading. And he brings in a 3-3-5, which is going to bring in a different type of athlete. In general, do you think there's going to be a sort of a shift in focus on recruiting? He's talked a lot about the 300-mile radius that he wants to establish, which, makes a lot of sense, still locking down the state of Wisconsin, but also the Chicagoland area. How do you think that the hiring of Fickell is going to change Wisconsin's approach in general to recruiting?
I don't know if it's going to change necessarily Fickell, as far as what they recruit, maybe a little bit different personnel wise. Now the 3-3-5, 3-3 stack is not a defense that you see a ton in college football, and it presents a lot of issues. And without going too deep into it, I'll just explain. A lot of people think of it as a defense that can only be good against, wide open spread teams. But what it does is it makes offensive linemen count for numerous players in their box. If I'm an offensive lineman and I'm looking what's in front of me, when you have a 3-3 stack, you basically have to double count. And I know this doesn't make a lot of sense unless I'm on a whiteboard for every person in there. So our offensive lineman has to account for all these variations of the way these guys can flow, that they could blitz, they could pressure, anything like that. So it puts a lot on the offensive line's plate. You're a little lighter. You're a little lighter on the field, probably, as far as bodies, just because of the versatility that it presents against the pass game. You're not going to have the 3 down linemen and all of that to go with another 4 big outside linebacker, middle linebacker types. It's almost like being in a nickel. You can get 3 big linebackers on the field. So there's going to be a little change as far as the recruiting goes, personnel wise, but I think overall, not too much is going to change. Maybe you take an extra, big nickel or monster nickel, kind of like you say, jumbo slot with the tight end. A guy who can cover but also play outside linebacker, maybe drop back into safety, maybe come off the edge. So, there's a lot to like about the 3-3-5 stack, or, you don't see it every week. And but as far as personnel goes, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference. Now, when you talk about the recruiting radius, I think we're going to see what Cincinnati did. We're going to shift it over a couple 100 miles, and we're going to just do the new radius. And if you look at their past recruiting footprint, they killed it in Illinois. They killed it in Ohio. And that's what I think they're going to attempt to do, as well as Michigan at Wisconsin. When we talked about what should the recruiting footprint be moving forward, I think I said 400-mile radius. They're saying 3. If you can constrict it as much as possible and get the players you need, that's fantastic. So obviously, they're going to try to draw a line around the state, keep every great player at home. They're going to obviously be in Ohio due to connections. They're going to be in Michigan. Everyone in Michigan thinks of Sauce Gardner when they think of Coach Fickell. And they're going to be strong in Illinois. Guys like Alec Pierce, guys who weren't offered by multiple Power 5 teams, go there and they become high round draft picks. So, there's going to be a lot of focus to this recruiting. There's going to be a great staff. Maximus Steinecker coming on, did a podcast with him earlier. I know that some people saw, and they're headed in the right direction as far as the recruiting department. That's the one guarantee here. They're going to recruit.
That's great news to everyone who follows Wisconsin football, especially if they can really carve out the Chicagoland area for themselves, where Notre Dame and Michigan State and Michigan have tended to dominate recently. Justin Scott come on board, because they're going to want to get in, I think, early and often with more of these national recruits. They're going to be more aggressive. And one of the criticisms of Wisconsin's recruiting strategy for a long time has been they slow play too many players. And I don't think that we're going to see that anymore under this new regime. All right, so let's move. Speaking of, the talent that they tend to look at and go for, they've obviously, with a new coaching staff coming in, where there's going to be a lot of people looking at, who's currently committed to Cincinnati, who might have an interest in Wisconsin. The big name everyone knows is Amari Snowden. We've covered him on this podcast before. We broke him down back over the summer. But, he's a guy who really wants to play baseball too. So that might be a little bit out of the question. What other guys that are committed to Cincinnati in this 2023 cycle do you imagine would be sort of the most high priority targets?
Well, I mean, I would look at tight ends right away. Kamari Anderson, Evan, and I'll probably butcher his last name, Hengdashal or whatever. Those are both guys who have Alabama, LSU offers. I mean, that's the caliber of player that they were recruiting at Cincinnati. You talk about the way that they identified and landed kids early. Their recruiting class was like top 5 in the nation at one point, because they did such a good job sticking with their conviction, believing in their evaluations, and going out and getting guys, landing them and keeping them up until the last, couple weeks. And obviously after Coach Fickell left. But a lot of these big schools were coming in to poach their guys. And I think with that, they head to Wisconsin now, and they hope that doesn't happen. The other guy that I would look at is Brady, the quarterback. He's a true dual threat. He's a big kid, big arm, accurate passer, can do just as much with his legs as he can with his arm. Amari Snowden, he would be a no-brainer. Like you said, baseball, he's got a chance to be a draft pick in baseball. But he says he's wide open. He's, he was hurt by Coach Fickell leaving because he loves the guys so much. They have such a great relationship. I know a lot of the stuff that's coming out, quotes from guys and stuff like that, seems negative in nature because Coach Fickell left to go to Wisconsin. But it really, that is not the case. These guys loved the guy so much. They believed in him so much. And they thought, there was this picture that was going to happen, and things have changed. But it doesn't change that Coach Fickell is a great recruiter. great relationship builder, and has a staff that does the same. But those would be the key guys, the tight ends especially. I'd be interesting to see what they're doing with the O-line. A lot of those guys are still committed. And one thing that I would say is I believe Coach Fickell has a tremendous amount of respect for the Cincinnati program, for the people who are there. That is a place that will always be in his heart. I don't know if he's going to go hard after guys who remain committed to Cincinnati. Now, if they decommit and they say their recruitment's open, maybe that's a different deal. And that's just me speculating. But the guys I would look for right away are the quarterback, obviously, the two tight ends, and some of, they had Cam Calhoun committed to them. Michigan just scooped in and grabbed him. We talked about him on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I'm sure he's a guy that they could potentially continue to target. But their class was deep. It was talented. And I wouldn't say that any guys are off limits as long as they do decommit from Cincinnati. And not all of them are ready to do that. Even the ones that have decommitted, they said that Cincinnati will always be an option for them. So I think a lot remains to be seen. The next month is going to be very telling.
Well, let's talk about that quarterback, Brady Drogosh, a little bit more, because you turn on the film of him, which we're about to do, and one thing that jumps out immediately is his size and athleticism. I mean, he's 6'4", like he's a legit 6'4" back there at quarterback. And, I think Wisconsin hasn't seen quite an athlete like that in quarterback in a minute.
Built like a pro style quarterback, looks like that NFL pocket passer, but has the legs of a true athlete. And a lot of times what you see with guys like that, they're not very pinpoint accurate. They kind of go a little cowboy, go out there and just chuck the ball and kind of, see how things go. The thing you'll notice with Brady is he's always keeping his eyes downfield, like you see right there. He kept his feet in the pocket, but he stepped up. He could have ran, but he was still looking downfield, knew that he'd have a guy. You love the way he just, his composure back there, his footwork. He can flip his hips, throw it to the opposite side. The way he plays, that he sees the field. He knows where guys are going to be. He has, obviously has great sync with his receivers. He's doing backside throws. He understands the defense. And then you see there, a designed run. And, the things that you can do with a quarterback like that is really, you create headaches for a defensive coordinator. Instead of it being 11 on 11 or, 11 on 10, which football usually is, 11 defenders versus 10 on offense, because the quarterback is not a running threat. And all of a sudden becomes 11 on 11. It's a man for a man. And really, the quarterback only has to be the defensive back or somebody who's trying to tackle him. And so he presents a lot of issues for a defense. His completion percentage, like I said, it was like 69% this year. He, I think, broke the record for single season completion percentage, career completion percentage, around 62, 63%. And this is at a De La Salle program that has had a lot of players. So he does a little bit of everything. He's very heady. He's got moxie. He can go cowboy on you. He can play within a system. He can run the ball, short passes, intermediate passes, deep balls, fitted in tight windows. He's a guy who will be in the 4-star conversation eventually. If not, he'll at least be a high 3. But you couldn't go wrong with this kid. And I think he'll continue to blow up. I'm surprised, and I think it's because he's still committed. The only offer I believe that he's picked up since Coach Fickell left, maybe Tulane. I'm not sure if he picked up Pitt. But a lot of guys are full at quarterback at the same time. Wisconsin, I think you take him. He's a difference maker. They need quarterbacks in the system. I would take both him and Culver Crew if I could. And but I just don't know where their head's at right now. And I think a lot of that remains to be seen. But you got to love what you see from Brady. Huge senior year as well.
Yeah, he does have that. He did get that Pitt offer. That is correct. And so it looks like, people would imagine Wisconsin would be in on him pretty quickly should he decommit, because, we all often see coaches come with a quarterback, right? Especially in that class that they are coming with, and that first real class is going to make a really big difference. Let's talk about some of the potential pitfalls that the program may face on the recruiting trail, specifically within the state of Wisconsin. Losing Coach Leonhard is a tough blow in a lot of ways, right? Because for anyone who has never lived in Madison, doesn't really know a ton about the program, Jim Leonhard is more than just an elite player and a great coach. He embodies something bigger than just that. And so there are going to be a lot of people around the program, around the state, who are hurt by this because of just the fact that he didn't get the job, but the way that it was handled. And some people have described it as being sort of a slap in the face to a program legend. So how do you think what are the potential negative repercussions from the way that this was handled and the hiring, and how do you see this affecting the program moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of symbolism in football. And you said he embodies Wisconsin football. He's symbolic of the Wisconsin program. Hard-nosed, lunch pail guys that make the most out of their ability, that win championships, become All-Americans. And if Jimmy could do it, anybody could do it. And that's how, you grow up as a kid in Wisconsin. Jim Leonhard, especially if you get a chance to walk on in Wisconsin, that's who those kids, they want to be like. And Jimmy's one of them, And so at the same time, not all these kids grew up watching Jim Leonhard play. They know him more as a coach than they do as a player.
I mean, if you're in the class if you're in the high school class of 2023, Jim was in his second year in the league when you were born, right? He was drafted in 2005, right? So, I mean, if you're class of 2023, you're probably born in 2004 to 2005. So, you're not really conscious of his ties there as a player. You might have, when you started watching the league a little bit as a young kid, seen him, but even then, it's not like he was Ed Reed or anything like that in terms of notoriety.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Wisconsin legend, and so when parents are watching NFL games on Saturday or Sunday, they turn on the game and they're like, "This is Jim Leonhard." The kids know the history of him, and he's been a great coach. And the way it was handled, I do think it could have been handled better. But that's not here or there. That's not my decision. I'm sure it does feel like a slap in the face. I haven't talked to Jimmy. I wish him the best and everything like that. He's going to fall on his feet just fine. He can probably go anywhere that he wants. But at the same time, I think he wanted to do it at Wisconsin. The blowback, I think there'll be some. But I don't know if it's enough that's going to really alter the program. There might be some in-state coaches who aren't going to be as friendly to the program. I mean, that happens when these things happen. There's going to be players who, if Jimmy goes somewhere else, they're going to want to go and play for him somewhere else, maybe. But as far as me kind of projecting how it could go, I really don't know. I don't think Wisconsin's one of those states where it's only Wisconsin football. Now, if this was maybe Nebraska or something like that, where, that is religion, and they did one of their own, maybe that they feel wrong, then it can have an impact. And I think we've seen it have an impact at Nebraska. I'd like to think that Wisconsin's not necessarily like that, but I really don't know. And I don't know the status of Coach Leonhard. Does he end up at Wisconsin? I don't know. I've been actually bedridden sick for the past few days, so I'm a little behind on the news. But just like anybody else, I wish him the best. We know he's a great football coach. We know he would have done a great job with the program. But that's not our decision to make, I guess, at the end of the day. And Wisconsin fans, I think they have to be happy that they found a winner. And I think Coach Fickell will win the people over no matter what their perspective is on this.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you just mentioned Nebraska. They just had a big decommit with Malachi Coleman, who was a notable target also for Wisconsin at one point in his commitment. I don't know if he ever made the top group for them, but with his decommitment from Nebraska, it's going to be open. He's going to be a guy that you're going to want to go after if you are, any team in the country. Let's face it, he's a beast. And so I know you know him. You've got something coming out, I think, relatively soon with Malachi. What is the latest on him?
Well, I was kind of caught as a shock when I saw that he decommitted. I didn't want to bother him last night. I will be talking to him actually right after we film this, so I will have something coming out with him, and it'll probably be out before this comes out. But his top 7 was, I believe, Ole Miss, Michigan, Oregon, Oklahoma, USC, Nebraska, and Georgia. I think Georgia is a team to watch here. I don't know if I named all 7 there.
No, you did. I was counting. You hit 7.
Oh,
Good
wow.
work.
Wow, imagine that. Got my math right. I'm interested to see because it caught me by surprise as well. I think a big part of it is Malachi's a big relationships guy. I went down, I emceed his commitment ceremony. Guy I've gotten to know him pretty well. You talk about, physical, athletic freak, guy who's overcome tons of adversity, grit factor. He has it all. I mean, he's a 10-400 kid or 10-3 or whatever it is at 6'5", 200 pounds. He can play defensive end. He can play receiver. He's a no-brainer. Everybody's going to be after him that has a spot. Like I said, I think, and without talking to him, this is speculation, Georgia's going to be a big one. I could see Oklahoma, USC coming back in. Next to Nicholas Harbor, he is the freakiest athlete. And I mean, if he wasn't in the same class as him, he'd be probably the freakiest athlete in almost any class. So,
yeah, but Harbor is the freakiest athlete in a decade. Oh my God, that just as an athlete, I'm not saying as a football player, I'm saying as an athlete for his size and his speed is unfathomable. Like, I don't
think him and Malachi talk. So like Malachi wants to beat him in the 100 this coming year. So I mean, two freaks. I wouldn't put anybody out of it, to be honest. Wisconsin's the type of program that I think he would be interested in. I think he made a visit up there earlier in the season, maybe. But I'm interested to see what he says. I want to see if it's back to the top 7, if we start from ground zero. I want to see what happens next, just like you guys do.
Well, and especially, with the coaching change, they get more officials to use and things like that, so they can take more of these visits as well. So it's going to be, an interesting recruitment, as a lot of these are to follow after all these coaching changes happen. So, it's Wisconsin's obviously going to be one to hopefully a player to watch for him for Badger fans. They're going to definitely want to get him on the field if they possibly can. On their team. Clint, I'm certainly glad you're on my team. I wouldn't want anyone else. I wouldn't want anyone else out there for me to throw up questions to. You take them and run with them. So we will be back next week with more, hopefully, answers for all of your questions in the Badgers Den. We'll maybe have some new assistant coaches named. I'm sure there will be more decommits, some flips, some new commits. There's going to be all sorts of fun stuff to talk about next week. Make sure you're tuned into Badger Blitz for all of your Wisconsin football and basketball needs. Tough loss to Wake Forest. And make sure that you are following Clint at rivals_Clint on all the social medias. I'm at _Perko_. Still waiting for someone to buy me the good Twitter handle.
Buy this man his handle. Come on, you can buy out a coach for $16 million or whatever. Let's get this guy a handle.
$100, I think. Come on. I will have to price it out. We will see. Anyways, until next time, we will see all of you guys in the den.
In the den.